Hello everyone and welcome back. We're here for Crafting 101 Part 2, where we go over the general idea for what you want to put on an item. For this, we're going to use a website, and it's called PodiB, and let's go there now. Okay, for this one, we're going to Google PodiB, and it's the first item, which is podb.tw. So what does this give you? It gives you a selection across the top here of what you want to craft. So, one of my builds this league is going to be a Bleed Gladiator, single-handed weapon, so let's pick a one-handed axe. I'm not sure if I'm going axe or sword yet, but we'll see. Okay, so we got our axes now, and it will tell you what the prefixes and the suffixes are. Remember, you can have 3 of each of these on a rare item. Now, there's also influence on weapons. So if we scroll down, you've got shaper influence, suffixes and prefixes. These can only roll on an item that has the shaper touch on it, or the shaper influence. And then we got elder ones, crusader, warlord, delve, incursion, all the crafting bench mods, essences, and then these are the corruptions that you can put on the item as well. So there's a lot of different options for a weapon, which can be very confusing. These blue squares tell you what the tags are. So cold resistance is elemental, it's cold, it's resistance. Now this number in red is the chance of rolling that on the item, or it's the weight of rolling that on the item. The lower the number, the harder it is to get. So chaos resistance is harder than lightning resistance, which is why you'll see chaos resistance on far less items than you'll see elemental resistances. When we think about a sword that's going to do bleed, we need to think about the character. One, it's doing bleed, so it's going to have to roll fizz. Probably going to use impale, so it's probably going to go brutality. So we're not going to use any elemental damage. We're either going to want physical modifiers, and lots of them, or we're going to want physical ailments. So if we look now on this weapon, what's it got that's physical ailments? So we got damage over time modifier. That probably isn't going to work because it's got damage, it hasn't got physical. And we can check that by clicking on it. And the weighting hasn't changed. Now what did change there is if we look at increased damage with bleeding, and attacks have X chance to bleed, which is this one here. That's currently got a weighting of 7,000. If we switch on this corroded fossil, that jumps to 70,000. It's got 10 times more chance of rolling. And you can see it's put a little 10 there to tell you you've got 10 times more chance of rolling. So let's look at the other bleeding modifiers we can get. So if we go back to more physical chaos ailments. Okay, 60% chance for bleeding inflicted with this weapon to deal 100% more damage. We've got a 5,000 chance to get that. Now the other problem is we've got a 20,000 chance of getting supported by level X chance to bleed. So that wouldn't be terrible, but it's this one we really want, because a 60% chance for bleeding inflicted with this weapon to deal 100% more damage is really, really powerful, because if we double our bleed damage, we can apply 10 of those bleeds. That's a massive amount of damage. And also we got the impale stacks on there and everything else, so it's going to deal a lot of damage. You'll notice that this requires an elder base, so it says elder prefix, so the weapon must have elder on it. So if we flip back over to Path of Exile, and we have a look in my stash tab, do I have any axes that are shaper or elder modified? And I don't. You see, these things are elder, so these tentacles mean elder. This sort of space background means shaper. So I'm going to have to find a one-handed axe that has this on it. Once I get that, then I can start using fossils to try and craft on that bleed double damage modifier. Going back over now to PodiB. Now, we got all these poison suffixes as well. We don't want those. We need to avoid them. So how can we do that? If we look at fossils again, what have we got? Jagged fossil, more physical modifiers, no chaos modifiers. So that should switch off anything with a chaos tag. So if we go back down now to this elder modifier, we got a 6% chance to bleed. We got critical strike, but you'll notice all the poison has gone. So we've narrowed down our list of items that we're going to select from. So to get this craft, we probably are going to use fossils. And also now that score has gone up from 5,000 to 10,000. We've still got much more chance of getting this one Is there anything else that can help us narrow it down? Okay, so there's attack modifiers. Does this say attack? It does. Okay, so that will increase. Where is it? More attack modifiers. Okay, so our 6% chance to bleed has now gone up to 15,000% chance of rolling. It's still the lowest. Actually, it's not. That's the lowest. So we're probably going to spam this with fossils to try and get what we want. And it's going to take 3 fossils to do that, which are jagged, serrated, and corroded. Now, the other thing to note is the level of your item. So if we click on this, we can only roll this on an eye level of 83. So if our weapon only has an eye level of 50, you'll notice that there's no elder modifiers that we can roll on it. So it must have a high item level in order to get what we want. And I think it was 83 in this case. Yeah, it was. 83. So your item must be eye level 83 in order to roll that. Now to check the eye level of an item, if we flip very, very quickly back to Path of Exile, go and look at our items. Actually, let's go and look at shaper items again. So you'll see here, there's a requires level, but if you press Alt, you'll get the eye level, or the item level, which in this case is 76. That isn't going to be sufficient to get our bleed roll. Now, on this horror crack, that's an item level of 83, so that one could roll it if it was a one-handed axe. It isn't. Now, again, we want physical as well. So if we flip back, now you'll also notice that this fossil gives us the chance, well, it's actually a massive chance of 140,000 to roll adds X to X physical damage. That's a really good roll for bleed. The other thing is increased physical damage. We don't necessarily want accuracy rating, but it's not going to hurt. So that's a 75,500 chance. And we got 210,000 here, increased damage with bleeding. Attacks have chance to cause bleeding. Not massively keen on that one. So there's a couple of problems you have here. One is, what makes an item good? So explaining what items are really good are really difficult, because it really depends on what you're trying to get out of the item. Like, these things I'm trying to roll on my bleed item are going to be pretty useless for someone doing elemental damage who doesn't cause bleed. So it's very, very subjective and very, very based upon what you want to roll. Strength and dexterity on a weapon is always good if you're trying to fill in gaps, like your shield and things. But again, it might not roll on a shield. You need to basically select the item, make sure it has the right suffix you want, make sure you've got the right base type, and then you're good to start crafting. Work out if you want to use fossils or not, if you're just going to try and spam it. So if you look at this physical damage modifier, the adds X to X physical damage, which we have a really high chance of getting. You'll notice that we have these ranges again. So we talked about it before, where the higher the tier, the better your rolls would be. So a Divine Orb will change these numbers, but it won't change the band ever. So we want the highest band possible, which in this case would be Flaring, which gives us 20 to 27 to 41 to 49 physical damage. Now that requires at least an item level of 77, not a problem in our case because we have to have a base item level of 83. But that's something else to take into account. So what happens if you have a great axe, but it isn't the right base type that you need? So for instance, I want an Elder base type. How do I make sure that I can get that on an axe of my choosing? And actually, of our choosing, we should probably actually look at axes in general, which we'll do in a second. So the way to get the two different types on an item is to use something called an Awakener's Orb. And if we click on this, it tells us it's a currency item. Using this on an item destroys the item and allows the player to apply the item's influence to another item of the same item class. The second item is then reforged as a rare item with both influence types and new modifiers, which are just your prefixes and suffixes. So how do you get these Awakener Orbs that allow us to do this? Unfortunately, the only way of doing it is killing Cyrus, but he's got a chance of dropping them, and then you can use it to reforge your items. So for me to do this, I'm probably going to want to kill Cyrus to force on the Elder Influence, unless of course I can get it naturally, which could be rather difficult. So the other thing we want to talk about is axes. So here I've googled POE axes. and this will give us a list of all the axes, one-handed and two-handed. Below these it will give you the uniques. So this is a really good way of finding an item you want to use. Bear in mind also that for some builds like Flicker Strike for instance, you want to generate frenzy charges for that. If you can't get your frenzy charge generation on an item by crafting, you might be forced, or it might even be beneficial for you to go with a unique item that does do that. For example, I think it's Terminus Est. Whenever you do a crit, you'll get a frenzy charge which allows you to then jump again. So going back up to our one-handed axes, we need to pick the base for our axe. So I've got two requirements for my axe. It's got to hit fast and it's got to hit hard. So this is the damage, or the DPS numbers. This is the attack speed, and this is the crit chance. So the further down you go, normally the better you're getting. So this has got a physical damage of 81%, and it's got a 5% chance to crit, but it hits 1.5 times per second base. This one only hits 1.2 times per second. So I'm actually probably going to go for the Siege Axe for the extra attack speed, because I will be rolling attack speed on this character, and the higher base attack speed means that weapon's attack speed will be modified more by increases to attack speed than say this one, which is only 1.2. Now I know I need a Siege Axe with an Elder Roll of an eye level of 83 to craft the item I want to craft. And I also know I need 3 different fossils to do it. So we've talked about how a higher item level gives you better quality rolls, such as in this example where you can get 75 to 79 increased physical damage as opposed to 65 to 74. But is there any benefit to using a lower item level on an item? Turns out there is. So if we reduce this to level 1 for instance, we get far fewer prefixes and suffixes on an item, so it's really easy to get one of those. Now if we get a wand of item level 2, yes, this increases the number of prefixes and suffixes we get. It also gives us X to level of all elemental or chaos or physical spell skill gems. That should be very, very easy to roll one of those prefixes. And that's because it's got a rather high modifier compared to these. So the increased spell damage is less chance than rolling this. So these sort of 3 here are probably the easiest things to roll on the whole item, and they tend to be best for leveling characters. Okay, so let's try our luck. Here, I have a wand eye level 3, so not a 2. +1 to level of all lightning skill gems. We can actually make a selection of these as well, so if we grab another... Is that an I3? It's an I3. Oh, it's already rolled, so... +1 to all level of chaos spell gems. So this is a really neat way of making leveling weapons and leveling wands. Now you might be asking, why go to all the trouble? Why not just use a life sprig? And that's because the life sprig adds +1 gems to all spell gems, but only socketed ones. This wand will do it to all lightning gems on your character, so on your chest piece. So if you have got a tabby, that's now +1. If you roll 2 lightning +1s, you've just got a load more damage. And these could really take you to sort of yellow maps in some cases, because spells damage increase massively as they level, and therefore adding extra levels to them make them much more powerful, especially for chaos damage over time and cold damage over time. So it's well worth looking if you can pick up a level 2 wand with a new character to try and roll something on it if it's not your league starter. I hope you found this video useful. If you haven't seen my other crafting videos, you can find them in the POE non-build guide playlist on my YouTube channel. These are designed to be watched as a series. If you found the videos useful, then please do consider subscribing, leaving a like. If you want more videos like this, please let me know in the comments what you want me to focus on, and I'm happy to look at it. So all that's left is for me to say thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time. You've been watching Altec2k. Thank you for watching.